Today, we're jumping into a theory with a name that sounds like it was pulled straight from a sci-fi novel, but its goal is incredibly real: to lay out a blueprint for, well, rebuilding reality itself. Now, this is the question that's really at the heart of everything we're about to explore. What if the most powerful tool for changing the world wasn't politics or technology, but poetry? What if you could literally engineer a better future just by forging a new language? So the challenge, as the source material puts it, goes way deeper than just, fixing roads or putting up new buildings. It's calling for ontological engineering, which, okay, is a super complex way of saying we need to rebuild the very foundation of how we see and interact with the world. And the proposed solution is, yeah, it's a mouthful, the double transversal transjective quadratic model theory, or DTQMT for short. Honestly, the best way to think about it is like an architectural plan, but not for a house. It's a plan for constructing an entirely new way of being. So how in the world do you start building a new reality? Well, this theory says you start with four foundational pillars. These are the core ideas holding the whole thing up. Let's break them down one by one. First up is hyper-objective materiality. The idea here is that we should stop looking at massive, terrifying problems like climate change as just disasters we have to solve. Instead, we should see them as raw materials. So think about it like this. A huge pile of mining waste isn't just trash, it's a geolinguistic deposit. It's physical stuff just waiting for us to give it a new story, a new meaning, and a new purpose. The second pillar is hyper-organic collectivity. This one asks us to think about social groups, like our families, our neighborhoods, or even whole communities, not as a bunch of separate individuals, but as a single distributed superorganism. Imagine a city acting like one giant creature, with its people as the eyes and ears, sensing and responding to the world as one. Now, Pillar 3 is where things get really interesting: flat resipolycentric symbolism. Put simply, this means words aren't just labels we stick on things, they're tools. The theory calls them literal organic organs that actually do things. So for example, you could create a new word that doesn't just describe the feeling of calm, but is specifically engineered to trigger a state of calm when it's spoken aloud. And the final pillar is what fuels this entire engine: teleontological affect. This is all about the emotional drive, the spirit behind the whole project. It's not about grimly struggling your way to a better future. It's about a joyful, optimistic, creative energy. The goal isn't some distant, perfect utopia, but a prometopia, a better reality that we are actively and happily building, right here, right now. Okay, so we have our four pillars. But how do they actually work together? Well, the model suggests a dynamic engine, and right at its core is this radical new idea of language as a hands-on tool for building the world. This represents a massive shift in how we think. We're used to a linear process, right? Thesis, antithesis, synthesis. Problem, reaction, solution. Well, this model throws that out for something called double transversality. Here, all four pillars are influencing each other, all at the same time. It's not a straight line. It's more like a living, constantly shifting matrix. So how do you work inside this matrix? The main action is something called verb forging. Seriously, think of a blacksmith at a forge, hammering out a new tool. Verb forging is exactly that: the intentional creation of new words designed to be tools. Tools that can literally reshape our perception, our emotions, and maybe even our physical bodies. And this quote gets right to the heart of it all. The utterance and the flesh cohere. It means there's no separation between the word you speak and your physical body. Speaking a newly forged word isn't just saying something. It's a physical act that is intended to change your physical reality. It's a wild idea. And the creative spirit that guides this verb forging, well, it has a name: Plela Soda. It's a new word itself, a neologism, that beautifully combines the idea of playful creation, the Melawande word for path, and the bubbling effervescence of soda. It's all about following a path of joyful, foundational creativity. Okay, I know what you're thinking. This all sounds incredibly abstract, right? Almost philosophical. But what happens when you take this dense theory and you actually try to build it in the real world? Let's take a look at the proof of concept. For that, we're heading to Kinema district in Sierra Leone, because there, the DTQMT isn't just a theory on paper, it's being used as the literal blueprint for real off-grid home and community space called the Mansion Maison.
It's a living laboratory where all these ideas are being tested.
And here is where you see how all that theory becomes something you can actually touch. To address hyper-objective materiality, that was Pillar 1, they're using solar grids and wetlands to treat mining runoff. For hyper-organic collectivity, Pillar 2, the community's governance is helped by AI sentiment analysis. For Pillar 3, flat symbolism, the walls are literally inscribed with new glyphs, and daily poems act as computer code for the irrigation system. And the whole project is driven by that joyful play Lusiosa spirit, Pillar 4, which kids are learning just like they learn math. And it's really important to look at the scale here. This isn't some massive state-funded mega project. It's a small 1.2-hectare pilot. It's an experiment designed to show that these radical ideas can actually work on a tangible human scale. The project is described as a living quadratic, a place where the theory isn't just talked about, it's lived every single day. So everyday things like cooking a meal or coming up with a new word are seen as these incredibly meaningful acts. So after diving into this unbelievably dense and ambitious theory, what's the big takeaway? Why does any of this really matter? Ultimately, what this model is proposing is a really radical idea that any real lasting change can't happen until we change the very language we use to construct our world. If you want to build a new reality, you have to start by creating a new vocabulary for it. And as the source material so poetically puts it, the better future we're all hoping for isn't some distant destination we have to reach. It's something that can exist right here, right now. It's the ground under one's feet, once we learn how to create and build with this joyful, constructive spirit. Which, of course, brings the question back to all of us. If language really does hold this kind of power to shape reality, what new words do we need? If you could forge just one new word to help build a better world, what would it be? And what would you want it to do? That's it for this explainer. Thanks for joining me.